Welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, the show where we dive deep into the world of fitness, health, business, relationships, and the art of living a balanced life. I'm Jami.
And I'm Greg, and we're here to give you the benefit of our experiences in the fitness and bodybuilding industry, the corporate world, running a business, personal development, and building healthy relationships.
Whether you're sweating it out in the gym, hustling in your business, or seeking balance in your everyday life, you're in the right place.
So lace up those sneakers and grab that water bottle, and let's get ready to transform our minds, our bodies, and our lives. Hey everyone, welcome to FitBody Lifestyle, and this is our Conversations With, and today we are very happy and honored to have a very special guest, Reijuana Harley, and welcome, Reijuana.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
We're so happy you're here.
We are very happy you're here, and you flew all the way from Chicago to be here, right?
Minnesota,
sorry. Chicago, Minnesota, sorry.
Same thing.
That
it's
is,
cold.
It is the lakes, right? I don't know why I was thinking Chicago. Probably Chicago Pro is what's in my mind. I don't know why. Anyway, so let's start this with our check-in. So your check-in word for this conversation?
Gratitude.
Ooh, okay. That's a good word. We like that word. We like
my
that
favorite
word. Why don't we start with just a little bit about you and assume that nobody knows who you are, which is incorrect because a lot of people know who you are. But go ahead and just give people a little snapshot of who you are and who you are, why you do what you do, that kind of stuff.
So my name is Reijuana Harley. First name can be very difficult when you look at, but very easy to pronounce. Let's see, I've been competing for 7 years now. I turned pro at the NPC Nationals in 2018, and then I did my pro debut in 2020 at the New York Pro. I do have a full-time corporate job. I work in security operations in the finance industry. Have a master's degree in IO psychology, so I'm very interested in human behavior, why people do what they do, and how to optimize people's performance inside the workplace, in their hobbies. And that also kind of led to how I got into competing. I was a collegiate athlete, I was a dancer, cheerleader, and then when I was done, I was like, I need something else to give my competitive outlet out. And I really liked that I was already in the gym, so that was, already there. So I got into competing. My dad did a show when I was younger, so I was kind of familiar with it. And I just liked that it was individual. So I got to focus on how to optimize my own behaviors to be better.
That's a big piece. And so we go back. I have an acronym rule. So IO psychology is what?
Industrial organizational psychology.
Okay, good. All right, thank you for that. And is that something that you're using in the security job now, or is that something that you just use every day?
Not directly. So my emphases when I was in school were leadership development, training, research evaluation. I did research for all the way from undergrad all the way through grad school. So that's what I was originally doing. But then I wanted to switch more into a sales role. I wanted to be more client-facing rather than research where I'm in front of a computer all day.
I think it's so interesting to get to hear from people like yourself that are at such a high level in the sport that also have really intensive careers, and you also are a posing coach as well. So
Yep.
how do you balance all of those things?
You have to pretty much prepare for the worst at all times. If you set a schedule, you know something's going to go wrong. So you kind of have to prepare, okay, if this happens, what can I do to be prepared for it? And that's kind of what I've always had to do. When I turned pro, I was in graduate school working full-time overnight job at a group home. I had a part-time internship, and I was a research associate. So, always just being overly prepared pretty much.
Well, and it's interesting too because in the competition world, your sleep is really important too. So it's even being able to balance getting enough rest and recovery and stress management and things like that. So I think it's really interesting to hear you say that and how you prepare for the worst. So give us an example of one of those types of situations where you've had to really be able to find a way to fit in all the things that you're doing in a day.
So I travel a lot for my work now, and there was one time I went out to Chicago, and I ended up being stuck there because mostly what I do is I'm kind of in sales, but also project management. And so I was managing a construction project, and while I was there doing a site walk, basically a beam fell and someone almost died on the job site. It wasn't Artex, it was like a different vendor or something like that. But I basically had to stay there for 5 days. Was not prepared for that. I didn't have anything with me. I didn't have like my posing shoes, and at this point I think I was like 5 weeks out or something. Didn't have my posing shoes with me, my suit. I didn't have any food besides what I had with me. And this was before like everybody started using Instacart, which has definitely made that kind of thing easier. So it was just a lot of scrambling, trying to figure things out. I remember just calling like 10, 12 restaurants, trying to see if I could either bring food and have them cook it for me, or like if they had something that was like meal or prep friendly. And I figured it out. It just took a lot of effort. You have to tell yourself, I'm going to make it happen, and figure it out.
I love that you explain that. And I know I see this often where people have kind of almost the best setup and scenario in their life to get their prep done, and yet they seem to always be hitting a wall and not getting it done. Whereas here you are in worst case scenario, you've got nothing that you need with you, and you are so close to your show and need to make sure you're so exact on everything. And you just work it out. And this is, I'm sure that some of that educational background in psychology and being able to manage the mindset plays a huge role in that for sure.
And I've heard a lot of people talk about this before, how when they start a prep, especially when you really get into the rhythm of prep, everything else in your life kind of falls into line too, because you have to be so on point that it's like, oh, I'm going to sleep in a little bit later today, or oh, I'll get to this eventually. It's like you have to plan everything, and you have to execute when you say you're going to do it, because otherwise everything will fall apart.
We talk about this a lot, and I don't know whether you've heard me say this, but no plan survives first contact is something I got from the military. And there's a quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower that is, in preparing for battle, I have always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And I do think that is part of what you're talking about here, which is that you can't plan for everything, but the process of planning, and like everything else falling into place, helps you then identify and be more resilient when those things go out. But I do think some other people, when they plan to the detail, when things go off the rails, they're not prepared to deal with those contingencies. So, and part of that I think is more psychological, or how your resiliency is individually. How do you deal with those emotional aspects that come up when the plan goes to shit, and now you have to do whatever is required to overcome in that situation? How do you deal with that?
If you would have asked me this like 3 years ago, I think my answer would be different. But about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with adult onset ADHD, and it kind of clicked for me because a lot of things started to make sense, because my hyper awareness of creating structure and how I have to be very systematic and organize things, I realized that was, before I even realized that this was an issue for me, I automatically started implementing these behaviors throughout my life to kind of combat that. And I think that has helped me a lot. Interesting.
Are you a fan of James Clear and Atomic Habits?
Yes.
There's a lot about that, about creating successful systems. And I think one of his things to say is that people who want to win once focus on an outcome, but people who want to win repeatedly focus on the systems.
Yeah.
Is that where you're oriented?
A little bit. That was very, when I was in grad school, that was a lot of my focus. Like 7 habits to how I think about connecting habits. That's when I think about creating systems. It's like you're taking structure, you're taking small habits, and you're just trying to intertwine them all together.
I love that. And so now go back a little bit, one level deeper on that part. So you create the systems, but then something happens. So, and there's usually an emotional response that occurs when something, especially for people that are very detailed. Would you say you're very detailed in your planning?
Yes.
Okay. So, but yet you've been able to balance that with the ability to then respond. And I've seen you do this, by the way. So I'm not asking this question without any experience of seeing you. And I've seen you deal with things that didn't go necessarily the way you wanted them to. We've been together at a couple shows, and maybe the outcome wasn't what we wanted, but I've also seen you respond with such grace and such dignity and just really professional attitude. So how do you prepare yourself emotionally to deal with those things that don't go according to Reijuana's special plan?
If we're talking specifically more prep competition, I think it's thinking back of my prep or however many weeks it was between a certain show. If I didn't get an outcome I wanted, did I do everything I was supposed to do? Did I check all those boxes? And at that point, you can't be upset. If you did everything you can do, all you can do is be proud that you did that, and be proud of whatever you showcased, and then go back to the drawing board. How do I improve from there?
I really love that about you, and I love that, you're also willing to take the time to grow, and I think that that's something in our sport that a lot of people don't want to do. They just want to keep getting on stage, which is fun. Getting on stage is really fun, and we know that the improvements happen when we're taking a step away and we're actually putting that time and energy into growing muscle and recovering metabolism and focusing on health. Talk a little bit about how are you able to kind of partition those pieces out, the prep, the fun, the glam, the stage versus that time away where you're focusing on the gym and you're needing to be consistent in order to bring back the improvements the next time you step on stage?
I think a part of it would be this, because I've always had so much going on, not just competing. Like, I've always been focused on, first it was graduating undergrad, and then it was graduate school, and then I was trying to get published as a researcher, and then I was trying to break into a new industry. So I've always had other focuses other than competing. And so when I am taking a step back and I'm trying to focus, yes, I'm still focusing on getting my food in, doing my training, improving my posing. I'm also focusing on these other things, because I feel like a lot of people who compete, we're all A-types, and we just overanalyze and we just dig and dig and dig. So if you don't have other things going on, that's all you're thinking about, you're just going to overthink everything.
I love that. So it's life balance for you. The important thing too, though, that you said is that you're also not throwing out. It's not like, okay, now I'm going to shut off my fitness goals and turn on the other goals. They're intertwined is what I'm hearing you say, and that's what works well for you is you're balancing them, and they'll shift a little bit. Maybe a little bit more focus is on one versus the other, but everything's being balanced really well. Does the ADHD make that difficult, or where does that come into play? I mean, you mentioned a little bit about how you've created some systems to overcome, where have been some of the obstacles or things that you might even still deal with?
I've definitely noticed that where it gets really tough for me to really manage it is when I'm getting close to a show, because it's like, okay, I have to go do my 9-to-5 job and I'm focusing on X, Y, and Z, but I'm super excited. I'm 4 weeks out. This is going on. So my mind is kind of here when I need to be over here. So that gets really tough.
Is that, so how do you put yourself, I mean, I think what you're talking about there is being present in the day.
Yep.
And we know that one of the success pieces in being a successful competitor is the daily execution. Focus on the day, win the day. So how then do you, but when you're living in different worlds, and Jami used the word balance, and the word that I was thinking of honestly was harmony, was keeping those things in harmonious, because they're not really always going to be in balance. There will be a project you're working on at work, and that will be taking most of your attention, even when you're in prep, versus when you're the day before the show or 2 week or the week of prep, that may be the thing that takes the most priority there. So how do you work that harmony?
I like that you use that. I do like that overbalance, I think, because competing has uplifted everything else in my life. And I think focusing on not that, going to the gym, meal prepping, it's not a task that's like draining me or anything. It's not. By doing those things, it makes everything else better.
You get to choose that, right? You're choosing that. Yeah. And we talk about that bodybuilding is not life, but it can make your life better. Okay. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is that you're choosing this. And so knowing that you're a choice, it gives you the power to choose how you want to react. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that. So 2023 was a great year for you, I think, at least. I don't know whether do you think it was a great year?
Oh, it was my best year, for sure. For sure.
Good. I want to make sure. I don't want to assume. So we won a show. We got to the Olympia. Got some great feedback.
She placed 13th
placed
at the Olympia.
13th at the Olympia. And
for those people that don't know, there were
49.
Almost 50 athletes. And these are the best of the best in the world. These are all people that are winning at the pro level. So that was a really, really great.
13th is a big deal.
Huge
big deal.
Yeah, it didn't even sink in for weeks after.
and so that's 2023. this year, and we started this conversation with the check-in. So what's the check-in for 2024? What's the intention that you're setting in terms of at least what you've described already, your personality, as you take your lessons and you apply them forward? So what are we applying forward this year?
So it's, beginning of February now, just had a start of a new year. A lot of people, everybody likes to set New Year's resolutions. I'm not huge on them, but I'm not against them either. It's kind of like when it comes to that time, if there's something that I feel passionate about, something that sparks something in me, like I'll set those. But the beginning of the year, I didn't really have, nothing came to me, so I just didn't really focus on it. But then I was listening to a podcast, and I cannot think of what it was right now, but
it wasn't FitBody Lifestyle? Since we haven't officially aired yet, I'm sure it wasn't ours. So.
It was not that one, unfortunately. Right. But they were talking about the difference between, and I guess I'll bring up this quote first because everybody's heard the proud but not satisfied. And we have such a culture of wanting all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think especially competitors, we do really well, we're very proud, we're happy with what we've done, but then, okay, on to the next thing. Now I want this and I want that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to have goals. It's good to have ambitions. But you also need to learn to be very satisfied with where you are and being proud of where you are. And I feel like me and a lot of competitors, I can get very anxious, always thinking about the next thing and what I want rather than being more satisfied and happy with where I am while still working to achieve those things.
Wow, that resonates so strongly for me. And I know, I feel that I've been that person before. And there's been moments in my life where I've realized, wow, I worked so hard. I climbed that mountain, I got to the top, and I didn't even look at the view because I was on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And I love so much that you brought that up because it is definitely something I see in a lot of the most successful athletes, that they can be happy and satisfied and proud with where they are. Not that they're not continuing to drive forward and want more. It's that balance or harmony, whichever you guys like. Between those two things, though, that really, to me, is what allows for success. Because one of the things that I have seen is those people that get so caught up on the next, a lot of times they get the anxiety. They start stressing out about it. The cortisol levels raise. Now, all of a sudden, we're battling a mindset that's actually hindering us from moving forward versus going, man, I'm so happy. I'm so proud of where I am. And now I get to do it again.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love so much. And I feel that from you in everything that we do. When we're at a show, the kind of energy that you bring, the kind of the way that you are with the other athletes around you. And I know you bring that into your practice as a posing coach as well. And I would love to hear a little bit more, because obviously I know that you're one of the best posing coaches in the world. And I literally tell people that all the time. You truly are. I mean, I see, first of all, your posing is so incredibly graceful. It flows. I mean, it's like a dance. And so I think you're able to infuse that for a lot of people. And I know you also touch their lives, in other ways too. So I want to hear a little bit about, what got you into it? What is your strategy when you're working with somebody on posing? Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
So before I even turned pro, Minnesota it's a lot bigger now, but when I started, it was such a small bodybuilding community. It was so niche, and there wasn't a whole lot of coaches. Even at the time, I think there was only 3 or 4 bikini pros that were there. And so people would ask me to help them with posing. And at this time, I had only done 3 shows. So it's kind of just helping people out around the gym. And then when I turned pro, my coach was really pushing me to actually start posing people. And so in 2018, that's when I started doing posing. And it was rough, I'll admit, because all I knew was what I was posing, what I did. And then I was kind of seeing that. I was seeing that everybody was kind of just looked like me. And I was like, it works for some, but not everybody. Especially, I'm 5'3". When I'm posing, a girl I was posing who was 6 foot. She cannot pose like I can. Things have to be laid out completely different for her. So I really started studying posing. And I think it has become a lot easier because there's a lot more on YouTube now. When I first started, it was very crappy, super far back videos of stage, competitions. But there wasn't as much direction, there wasn't as many resources out there. So I kind of just started just watching a whole bunch of shows, going to more shows, trying to look at, okay, this girl's this tall, or she's got, her legs are way longer than her torso, and just started teaching myself, what are the different physiques people bring to the stage, and how do they have to present it so it still meets the judges' criteria. And so that's something I really focus on when I'm working with my girls, is I'll ask them, what was your feedback? Not just about your posing, what was your feedback? Where did they tell you need to grow? Do you need bigger shoulders, bigger glutes, X, Y, Z? Do you have any previous injuries? Let's see your flexibility. What sports did you play? So I ask those type of things, and I want to learn about my clients, and because I think it helps me just find a routine that matches them. I think that's a big thing.
I love that. And I love that you said when you first started, you were teaching people what you did, because I do feel like a lot of new posing coaches, we see that. It's kind of that cookie cutter because that's what they know. And it could work for several, but like you said, there's some people that maybe they don't have the same flexibility, or their proportions are a little bit different. And I love that you also said that you ask about the feedback, because if they said this athlete needs more shoulders, then you could pose them in a way that actually accentuates that word, their shoulder. So that's really great. I think some people miss a lot of those pieces. So I love that a lot. I think one of the most challenging things, and you can tell me whether or not you agree with this and how you deal with it, is if somebody doesn't have a lot of body awareness and ability, and I would say I would even put myself in that category, because I did not like when it came to dancing, I got a lot of flack for that. I don't move. I don't move as fluid. So how do you help? Because I know there's the specific poses, but then there's the movement in between. How do you help people master creating a flow that's going to work for them?
So a few things. So when I first started it's all started in person, and then when I started going online, I was like, ooh, I need to completely change the way I'm instructing this now, because you have to know how to give people cues that are going to click. Because if you're just telling them, and the cues that you're giving is, that's what you use for your posing, it doesn't work for everybody. So say I'm trying to get someone to understand how to twist in a front pose, I probably have, 10 different ways that I could cue somebody in how to do that, because everybody's a little bit different. So I think that kind of helped. Oh, now my brain just went in a different direction here.
And then the flow between.
Yes. So getting someone to learn how to flow, and people get kind of like, wait, you want me to do what? I'll have them do just kind of strange movements, just to see. I want to see how you naturally move, especially when I have a brand new girl, and I'm like, I know you've watched people pose. I want you to try to hit this pose. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to tease you. Just do what you naturally want to do. How do you naturally want to transition from the front to the back? Just watch the way they move, and then I'll kind of take some notes, kind of put some cues together, and figure out okay, how can I get them to meet the criteria, but still make it look very natural, as how they naturally want to move through it.
Awesome. I love that. And for our listeners, I'm probing her because I really want to know, because I'm really amazed, because I feel like that's something I find the most difficult, because I feel like putting somebody in a pose is one thing, but then getting them to flow between poses so that it looks aesthetically attractive and has that, if somebody looks more comfortable, then they're more fun to watch, and they're going to draw more attention to themselves, versus if they look robotic, or you can tell they're uncomfortable with what they're doing. So I just think you do a really beautiful job with that. So I'm probing because I want to know.
I've given girls homework where I say, I want you to lock yourself in your bedroom. I want you to have your heels on and a bikini in a mirror, and I want you to turn on your favorite song and not stop dancing for 5 minutes. I was like, I want you to record yourself. Nobody has to see it. I was like, I just want you to be more aware of your body and just get used to moving in ways that you don't move in regular life. And they feel hesitant and give me weird looks. And I'm like, I swear it helps. I swear it helps.
I love that, because Greg's always telling people to go take dance lessons.
Well, and I will tell them to take dance lessons to learn their body awareness. We told them, and what you're keying on is this interesting. And the question, I'll lead into the question here, but it's so interesting that you are focused on showcasing a person's physique And this is a sport of illusion. And so knowing how to position somebody that best showcases their physique, not your physique, not my physique, not Jamie's physique, but their physique, that's an art. And it's not, I know that AI has come a long way, but I don't know that AI is there yet. So it takes that eye to help people get there. The other part that we really focus on, and I know, and when I say we, I don't just mean Jamie and me, I think all of us, we really focus on being able to bring out somebody's personality in their posing. And I think that's what you're talking about, Reijuana, is that being, and we talked about this a little bit with Eureka in another episode, but about being your authentic self on stage. And I think that process of having somebody just dance, we've had people do the improv thing where they just kind of shake things out and just kind of move about when they pose. And we've had people say, hey, do something completely outrageous and let us see what that looks like for you. And it's always amazing that when they do something outrageous in their mind, it's really no different than what they were doing before. So the question here and the conversation that I want to keep having is, how do you dig in? I mean, this aligns, I think, a lot to your performance management background and getting the most out of people. So how do you dig in and find out what is this person? Because I don't think it's you telling them what their personality is. It's them tapping into themselves. So how do you do that? How do you get there?
I think part of it comes from too, like, I get pretty close to a lot of my clients. Yeah. I form pretty good relationships with a lot of them, just naturally, just having conversations with them. And too, like, and I know a lot of people who are either like posing coaches or not the direct coach. You kind of can become a therapist sometimes.
We have no idea what you're talking about.
I'll have a half-hour session with a girl and we'll be 20 minutes in. I'm like, okay, we need to actually get to posing now. Like, because they'll just want to vent and talk, especially if they have like a male coach and then it's just like girly stuff they want to talk about. And I think just getting them to open up and trust me, they're more willing to try things that they're uncomfortable with.
So when you see that part of their personality, but you don't see it coming out in the posing, and I know you have a list of set cues that you go through, but I'm wondering whether you have cues. How do you get into that personality? So if somebody's really shy, but there's a part of their personality that's a little bit wild or a little bit more dramatic or whatever, how do you get to that?
Oh, now it's going to leave my head when I'm thinking, but what is the actual name? You know how people have like a stage persona?
Yes.
There's a word for that.
A pseudonym or like a nom de plume or?
Yeah, I can't. It's a persona, but yeah, I can't think of what the actual term is.
We're fans of Drag Race, and so it's like they're dragging.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
their alter ego.
Like people know, like Halsey, the singer, like her real name is Ashley. Halsey is her stage name. It's her persona because she's actually super, super shy and timid. And she's like, Ashley could never go on stage and do that, but Halsey can. So sometimes I'm like, you have to dig and find your persona. Like when I started, and I know people would be like, I don't believe you, because I was a performance cheerleader, and then I was a dancer too, so I was used to being on stage, but I would get very shy actually on stage. So I almost had like channel your inner Beyonce, I would say, or you have to
your inner Rihanna.
Yeah. So, sometimes you just have to put a mask on and be like, maybe it's not Rihanna who's up there, maybe it is Beyonce up there, and you're just in her body.
Do you tell? So I'm so interested in this because again, we're huge fans of Drag Race, and so we're doing a Drag Race sweepstakes right now where we all picked our own drag names. I won't tell you what those are, but
we'll tell you off camera.
Yeah, you'll see our tote board at home, and RuPaul, if you're listening, we would love to incorporate the Drag Race sweepstakes into your show. But in any event, it's always funny that the queens will talk about themselves in that way. That if their name is
James or whatever.
Jinx Monsoon, one of our favorite drag queens, she'll talk about, well, Jinx can do this. I can't, but Jinx can do this. So when you find that, then how do you bring it out? How do you encourage them? How do you give them space and permission and the safe space? And I love that you're connected with that. So I'm sorry, I'm getting into a lot. You just excite me with this topic. It's very exciting. So
everybody's really different. So it really depends. And honestly, I don't have like a system for how I do it. I just pull something out of thin air, I guess, at this point. But like, and this is something I actually did when I first started, and I've had a few girls do it too. So when I started, I was still in undergrad. And I went to a big party school. And so in the summertime, Mankato State. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Minnesota State.
So those who might be looking for a party school.
I made my sister go there too because I loved it so much, but that's a different story. But so I was in my senior year when I was getting ready for my first competition, and I was like, hey, I need to get these nerves out. I need to do something where I'm not going to be scared when I get on stage. I put on my heels and just a regular bikini, and there was like a fenced-in gated community where just a bunch of college kids lived, and there was a pool there. I practiced my posing right next to the pool in front of like 100 people who were all partying and hanging out. And, of course I was sober because I was on prep and stuff. And I just like, yeah, I'm going to practice my posing here.
That's brilliant.
Oh, wait,
I was like profusely sweating as I was like nervous doing it.
I love that.
But I had people like rooting for me and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show. And I went to a gym too where it was probably a lot of people there competed, and it was like pretty much all college kids that went to the gym. So a lot of the people that were there, they kind of knew, and it's a relatively small school, but just I've had a few girls do things like that where I'm like, oh, you're going on family vacation? Go pose at the campsite in your bikini and your heels. Like, do something that makes you feel extremely uncomfortable, because I tell you, you get on stage, you're gonna be like, this is nothing.
Well, we talk this all the time, is train as you fight. And the more you can replicate those stage conditions, the more you're going to be prepared for show day, because you're not ready when the lights go on and your name is called or your number is called and you walk out. I mean, you're not ready for that. But preparing yourself in those situations that really make you uncomfortable is a brilliant approach. And what I want to know is, what was the reaction of the people around the pool? And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it helped that they were like intoxicated too. So like,
well, and it might maybe and maybe not. It didn't get out of hand, right? So nobody came up and was inappropriate.
No, it wasn't weird at all. No, and actually I had a friend, and she was doing figure, and she was doing it with me. So,
well, that helps to have your friend with you too. I love that. And I was thinking about the alter ego, and because for me, I had to do that for sure. I needed my alter ego because I got very shy on stage, and I just remember my mom saying, no matter how outrageous you're being, you're still not. You still need to do more. So. And I know for me, like, one of the things I did is control what was going through my mind when I was on stage. So I was curious, when you're on stage, what's going through your mind? What are you thinking about as you're performing?
It's probably different every time. Like, there's times where, like, say I'm like too lean, and I'm kind of at that place where I have to like be careful with how I'm posing, because I know like, ooh, don't lean into your glute too much. You might have some striations. So like things like that. But a lot of times, if I'm really just trying to focus on performing my best and bringing out my best, I try to just think of things, or, when I'm standing on the side, just like, how do I get myself in the happiest mindset? And it's not necessarily, sometimes it's, there's great music playing, we're all dancing, we're having fun, it's that kind of thing. But sometimes it's me just like closing my eyes and just focusing on like, dang, this was a hard prep. I went through this. I did all of these things, and yet I'm still here. I'm very proud already of what I'm bringing before I even get up on that stage. Kind of just give myself a little pep talk.
Yeah, reminding yourself.
So it's different every time.
I think that ties back to something you said earlier, which is about proud but satisfied. And it was a word I was thinking about this. It's almost like satisfied is a bad word. And satisfied is a great word. I mean, and being proud of what you delivered and how you prepped into that show. It sounds like you don't have a set pre-show ritual, that you are very in tune with what you need in that moment, and that's what you apply. Is that accurate?
Yeah, like I have certain things where it's like when I wake up in the morning, I do this and I do that. But like when I'm preparing to go on stage, it all just depends on, what I need to remember for the show. There's certain posing cues I need to remember. Is there a certain, did we make any changes to my routine or a certain pose or something like that? Or do I really want to focus on just bringing my personality that show? So it changes.
I love that you bring that out, because I think a lot of competitors or athletes will think, I need to have a pre-stage ritual. And your ritual is what I need in that moment. Is that fair?
Very much.
Okay.
Very much, yeah.
And I love that, because that I think that's really empowering to other people who may be wondering, when this industry, like every industry, everybody's looking at everybody else and what they do and thinking, oh, well, what's the right answer? And the right answer is what's right for you, not what's right for everybody.
Absolutely. And I think too, and this is something like I definitely wasn't this way when I first started, not at all. But like, it doesn't need to be so serious. Once you're on show day and you've checked all your boxes and you've done everything, like, have fun. It doesn't need to be so serious. Like we just get so anxious about what's going to happen afterwards. How am I going to place? How's this? When you're jumping ahead. Focus on now. Have fun with it. Don't take the day of show day quite so seriously.
I love so much that you brought that up, because I know there were times when I was on stage and, I would have a moment of, that anxiety that you're talking about and jumping ahead of things. And that's exactly what I do, is just remind myself to be present, to be in this moment. This is the moment I've worked so hard for. So just embracing and enjoying getting an opportunity to show all my hard work. So I really love that. And, I call that the champion's mindset. When you go into it going, I've already won because I did everything that was in my power. I'm proud of what I did. I'm proud to be here. And walking up there with that champion's mindset, you've already won. The placings are irrelevant at that point. Obviously, yes, we are going for certain goals and placings and wins and things like that. And at the same time, I think that, if that's our primary focus, that's where that anxiety and the stress and everything creeps in, versus going, exactly what you said. Did I do everything I could do? Am I proud of myself today? Yes, I am. Now I get to go have fun and smile and enjoy the whole thing. So I love so much that you brought that up.
Thank you.
So when you're coaching these athletes, but by the way, why don't we just take this moment to plug your posing business, which is Pose with Poise, correct?
Pose with Poise, yep.
Okay. Is that posewithpoise.com, or is that Pose with Poise on Instagram, or what or all of the above?
It's linked on my Instagram.
Okay. Okay. So how do you are you at some of the shows when your girls are performing?
I'm at all the local shows in the Midwest, and here and there I travel, but not too much. Just with work, it can be tough, but I try.
How is that going to shift when you aren't in the Midwest anymore?
Oh, I'll be at a lot more shows.
Oh, I didn't know this. Is this a breaking news?
We were looking at places and everything in Florida when COVID hit, and then since then we've got new jobs, and so hasn't happened, but we're planning to make the move
to Florida.
Either Florida, Texas, or Arizona.
Okay.
I can kind of go anywhere with work, but it depends on where my husband wants to work. And
husband wants to.
where I'm
yeah, we're all voting. 2 of the 3 of us want you to move to Arizona, and I'm going to say you want to move to Arizona too. You
I
just
love
do.
it here.
You just do.
I love it here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's just do that.
I think so,
Okay.
because I love the ocean, but it's beautiful, but it kind of gets, I don't want to say it gets boring, but you can only go and sit on the beach and do that kind of thing so much. I want to be up in the mountains like I was this morning and doing that kind of thing. That's way more my speed.
We have an ocean. It's just made of sand. So it's just something different. Yeah.
Well, the West Coast isn't that far either.
I don't think it works that way, babe.
Okay, well, that was a swing and a miss for me.
We have the waterfront.
So you guys have lakes here. There's lakes here, right?
Lake
There's
Havasu.
no alligators in them too?
No, there's not. There's not. We do have Gila monsters and scorpions and snakes, and that's about it.
I'll take it.
But Gila monsters are anyway. Let me go into this other where we started going down, which is your role as prep or as a stage coach versus opposing coach. So talk a little bit about how do you differentiate that, how you approach the show versus the prep to the show for your athletes as a coach.
Yep. So I tell them I do everything from the moment you walk on to the moment you walk off. Your walk, where you're gazing when you're on stage, how your hair is laying on your body, how you're flipping it, where you're looking when you're on the side of the stage, how you're posing, how you exit. I do help them with their suit. I definitely give input. You don't have to listen to what I say, but most of them do. I tell them, okay, these will be good colors for you. This is the kind of suit cut you should get. Don't do, X, Y, and Z. Or, I'll tell a girl, do not get a micro cut if she doesn't need it, that kind of thing. For makeup, I'll tell certain people, make sure they do this and they don't do this because of your features. And even facials. So being a dancer, we always would practice our facial expressions. Not that you're just holding a smile the entire time. You have to know how to drop the smile and bring different facials so you look natural and not like a robot.
you do something so brilliant on stage, and I'm thinking of Tyra Banks here, where I don't know if she
Smize,
yeah, but you do that, and you are so elegant on stage, and I really think you are, and I've told you this before, you're my favorite poser. Just how what you convey and the elegance and the grace. It honestly, you're the reason why I recommend people to do dance lessons, is because that grace and that body awareness. I don't think there's a move that happens on stage that you have not planned and prepared for and practiced, and yet it comes off as so just
in the moment,
fierce and fierce, and just that fierce is the word I think about with you, because you are fierce, and just it's amazing to watch you on stage. It's really a gift to be able to watch that.
I do tell people though, and I tell my clients, I'm like, go on my profile and go look at my posing routine from my first show. It's not what it is now. A lot of practice. It's like even growing up a dancer, cheerleader, having that body awareness, it took a lot of work.
And you're always wanting to be better anyway.
Oh, always. And that's the thing. I'm never satisfied with it. But I mean, we're our own worst critics.
Well, how about we say this? You're satisfied with what it was in that moment, and then but that doesn't mean that you're satisfied forever. You're satisfied with what you produce, and then we're going to produce something different or something better.
Yep, you can always improve.
And I'm glad you brought up how much you've grown, because I do think a lot of times a new athlete will come in and they'll look at a more advanced athlete, and then they're like, I want to be there now. Yeah. And understanding that it is a process. And I'm sure when you're coaching a pro athlete versus a brand new posing athlete, that's doing their very first show, they both have some, I would assume, some big challenges in coaching them, but they're different. What would you say are the differences when you're working with somebody who's already been competing for quite a while? Maybe they're at a pro level, or they're at least at a national level, versus a very first time. What are the challenges that differ?
Well, I love posing first-time competitors. I love it, because in the beginning, they're like, okay, this is harder than my workout. And it feels so awkward. Nothing feels natural. But then the more they work at it, you start seeing these like light bulbs go off and things start to click. And, one session, they're fumbling all over the place and they can barely stand in their heels. And then all of a sudden you can tell they were practicing and really focusing on it. And they come and they're all excited because they really nailed a move. And I like to be their little cheerleader. And so just watch them hit those milestones is a lot of fun. It's very rewarding for me selfishly.
Well, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you about when we're talking about being posing coaches. What's going through your mind when you watch your athletes on stage?
That's really tough. That's really tough. That's really tough, because I'm usually like screaming and yelling and stuff. But well, I'm always, of course, trying to think like, okay, what are the things we can work on for the next time? But also, I try to find wins for them, because a lot of first-time competitors get off stage, no matter how well they did, how well they end up placing, they're so hard on themselves. And they think, oh, this was terrible, I did so bad at this.
Yeah, we see that.
And so much. And especially a lot of the new girls, you see them on stage too, and they're looking at the other girls. Where as you become a pro, you just focus forward. You're not looking around. But so really just trying to pick out those wins for them, because sometimes they need help to see it.
Are you nervous when they're on stage?
Not really.
Yeah. Is there joy?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I get excited when I see them. I'll get all excited. And especially in the beginning, I tell them soak it up, because I only ever did one regional show, and I wish I would have done more, because that first show experience, being at that level where it's like your local peers and different coaches and from your local area, it's a different feeling. Yeah, it's different.
Yeah, that's a really great piece to talk about.
People are so in such a hurry, and not just in bodybuilding, in life. Yeah. I feel like a lot of times people are in such a big hurry for the next, and it's kind of resonates with what you were saying earlier. Is sometimes just enjoying where you are, because like you said, you jumped up very quickly, and it's like then you're starting all over again at that next level, and you didn't even get to really kind of enjoy level one.
Exactly.
So I love that you brought that up. And if you had it to do over again, would you do more than local shows before you went to the national level? What would you do different?
I think so. So yeah, my first show, I had just graduated from undergrad, and I was getting ready to go to grad school. So I ended up taking time off just for my first year until I started doing national shows. And I do wish I would have done a few more before I went into nationals.
So I want to talk. I know something about your background, and you've talked about this before. So, but I want to get into.
She's
this.
like, "Where is he going?"
I was like,
I know. Well,
you know a lot.
I'll give you. Yeah, no, it's not that. But it's dealing with. This is a hard sport. And you have an athletic background, but you've also dealt with some adversity in that background, and something that with your knee that. I mean, you had to deal. I won't tell everybody what it is. I'll let you tell everybody what it is. But I'd like you to talk about that, the adversity aspect, how you overcame that, how you are still overcome. Well, and I would you say you're still overcoming that?
It's so much better, but a little bit, yeah.
So just tell everybody what that is. So I'm not just like teasing something and then okay, that's the end of the show. Bye.
So actually, I'm gonna add something to that too.
Okay.
So after I turned pro, I ended up getting a breast augmentation. And then after I turned pro too, I took all that time off. Of course, I was going to do my pro debut right before COVID hit. I was 3 weeks out. So I ended up staying in prep for 6 months, just kind of waiting for everything to open back up. And as I got leaner and leaner, I discovered that I had a rupture. So my first 3 pro shows, I had a ruptured implant, and I ended up having to get that fixed. So I got that fixed afterwards, and then I started another prep for my 2021 season. And I've always had knee issues, terrible knee issues where I'll be just walking and my knee will just give out and I'll fall.
Wow.
And this would happen all the time. I've dislocated my knee over 12, 15 times. Just the left. The right one I have a few times too even. But it got really, really bad. My 2021, I did 6 shows, qualified on points going to the Olympia, and my knee was just terrible. I would wake up in the morning and my knee would be so swollen you couldn't even see my kneecap because it was just a big ball of fluid. And I would still do all my cardio, still get through all my training, push through it, doing physical therapy like crazy, just trying to, get to the finish line. And after the Olympia, I finally got an MRI, and I had 8 benign tumors growing in my knee. And it got to the point where you could see them through my skin.
Wow.
So I ended up having to have surgery, have those all removed. They were very, very invasive. So they were in the front of my knee, they were in the back. So they had to go in the front, they had to flip me over, cut me open in the back. So I have a nice big scar. They had to go in there and take them out. Lots of physical therapy. And the
tumors, I assume, attached to some muscle and nerve and other tissue. And so there's going to be some damage there.
I have nerve damage in my ankle. So a couple inches at the bottom of my ankle kind of feels like it's asleep, like when your arm falls asleep. So when you touch it, it's like that vibrating feeling. Still have it. It's not as bad. It's kind of getting better, but it's still there. And there's a pretty high chance that they could come back eventually. So every year or so I have to get MRIs to make sure they're not coming back.
Wow.
But we were nervous because they were really big and they didn't know how much damage they could have caused. And so they're like, after removing these, you could have a lot of issues. But I really stuck to my PT. I was on it like I was on a prep, and I ended up being fine. And I remember, I think I had taken a video the first time I was going to try sprinting on a treadmill. And I hadn't run since I was 14.
Wow.
And I was 27 at this time.
Why was sprinting on the menu for that day?
Because I just never was able to. It was funny.
Okay.
People, if I ran before this, because even if my knee was doing pretty good, I always have this little gimp all the time because it was always inflamed. Always
hitching your giddy up.
It was embarrassing. It was almost like not a party trick, but my friends would tease me about it all the time.
Wow.
Because I just couldn't run. I remember once we were trying to hurry across the street, and I was gimping, and everybody just turns and it's laughing at me. But so I remember I was I'm gonna run, and I set my phone up and I set the treadmill, and I remember doing my first sprint, and I started crying.
Wow.
And now it's better than it has been since I was in middle school.
So how do you set yourself up? Having had a number of orthopedic procedures myself, how do you set yourself up for the emotional aspect of overcoming that adversity, that injury?
It was really tough. I don't even know. I was very
imagine.
up and down. I was very emotional and just honestly just hoping, just trying to be hopeful that everything was be okay.
Yeah.
I'm hey, what can I control? I can control my diet, sticking to a good diet while I was recovering, and had to be out of the gym I had to be completely out for 6 weeks. I don't think I could train legs or do any type of lower body stuff for 10 or 12. Then I could start doing some band stuff. And then my PT. I was at PT 2 times a week. When they told me I was done, I was like, no, I'm going to keep coming. So I kept going, kept doing all my stuff at home, even met up with like a few local trainers to kind of help me with some strengthening exercises. And I'm like, how do I just make it so it heals the best it can? And that's all I could control.
That's brilliant. I think controlling what you can control is really the hardest thing to do. And then it's also the best thing you can do for your attitude to control those variables.
Yeah.
I love so much that you shared that. It's really, really inspiring. Because I know a lot of people do go through, hard situations, whether it be a physical or mental or, and how dedicated you were to just being in the moment, doing what I can today. I know it had to be an emotional roller coaster for you. So,
and I told myself, I was like, I might not be able to compete because who knows if I'm going to be able to, especially at that time, like I was still so small and I had a lot of growing to do. I'm like, I can only lift so much with my knee. It causes so many issues that I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to perform in the gym in order to get where I needed to be to compete. And I don't get on stage just to compete. Like if I'm not making improvements, I'm not going to compete. Yeah. So I kind of had that in the back of my head.
You did it. It's amazing.
Well, I love where you went with that, and I thank you for sharing that story. So we're at time. So let's do the checkout word. So what's your checkout word for this conversation? You started with gratitude.
So we have gratitude, and I'll say my checkout word is, can it be kind of the same?
It can be whatever you want.
Anything you want it to be.
This is yours.
I'll say blessed.
All right.
Because I think that kind of goes along with, they're the same but different.
Well, and I will tell you this, we are grateful for you.
And blessed
we are
that you're
blessed
here.
to have you in our presence and in our family, and we're super, super just honored for that. Reijuana, you're really one in a generation. You're amazing. So.
Well, yeah, I'm very happy I got to be here and finally get to see you guys since I haven't seen you since the Olympia, and I'm just so blessed to be on this team.
And before you moved to Arizona, this is the...
I know.
We're putting it into the world.
I'm just going to visualize that. Jamie will visualize it. She's more adept
Big
at that.
time.
All right, so we're done for today. And our 3 Bs: be safe, be good to each other, and be good to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to FitBody Lifestyle. We hope today's episode has left you feeling motivated and equipped to tackle your fitness goals, business challenges, and the daily dance of life. Remember to value progress over perfection. Life's tough enough alone. Find the chosen family around you to help you along the way.
If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite streaming platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at FitBody Fusion.